Welcome to the Only Male Cruz show, the We On Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? From a Black American's perspective. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch us live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Let's go to work. All right. Welcome to the Only Male Cruz show, the We On Your Head podcast. And I know your question is, Mel, why you cheesing? Why you cheesing, man? I'm cheesing because I got some fire. I got some fire for you today, okay? If you were joining us last week, we had George Middleton, who was discussing race being a social construct. Well, the title of today's show is, If Race is a Social Construct, how is that a benefit to Black Americans? And I got some questions for George. I need to know, how is race being a social construct a benefit to Black Americans when we've got these legacy organizations and all of this history that's been created under the guise of race? And I got a fire starter on here. I just ran across this person, okay? Miss Consuelo, all right? Who is a grassroots activist, reparationist, and an advocate for human trafficking. And I'm going to let everybody spit their tea, how they spit it, because they can do it better than me. So let's start off with George Middleton. Sir, thank you for coming again. I appreciate it so much. How are you?
Happy Sunday morning.
Yes, indeed. And then Consuelo, how are you, ma'am?
I am good. Grand Rising.
Yes, that's what they said. So just so that you guys know, this is a first. We are actually live on, streaming live on IG. So this is the first time I've done this, and you guys are riding this with me, okay? Shout out to the people in the Twitter streets. Let me see who this is. Everything Descendants. You're welcome to come up on the stage if you like to. But we're going to get into this thing. So we got a couple issues that just really have to be addressed. Starting off with your favorite, but definitely not mine, Miss Nikki Haley. Let's get this conversation started. Here we go.
Are you a racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then. Our goal is to lift up everybody, not go and divide people on race or gender or party or anything else. We've had enough of that in America. That's why I'm so passionate about doing this. I don't want my kids growing up where they're sitting there thinking that they're disadvantaged because of a color or a gender. I want them to know that if they work hard, they can do and be anything they want to be in America.
Okay, so that's what her mouth says, but the reality is there's racism all over the place. And, we couldn't even get Nikki Haley to admit why the Civil War actually happened. So either one of you want to kind of jump in and offer some overview or perspective on the clip we just saw?
Well, introduce me to your beautiful and intelligent guest there first. I'd like to know who I'm speaking with.
Sure. George, this is Consuelo. And again, as I indicated, Consuelo is a grassroots activist, a reparationist, and a advocate for human trafficking. And we are going to have her delve a little bit further into that, but I just kind of wanted to set the stage. So, and then Consuelo, this is George Middleton, and I actually told her about you.
Hi, George.
Yeah, advising that you were here last week talking about how race is a social construct, and you're back here this week because I want you to be able to delve into how does that impact our legacy organizations and all these other things. So we just heard from Nikki Haley. Which one of you would like to sound off on that video clip we just saw?
Well, I'll defer to Consuelo and let her get started.
Okay. Well, we already heard lies in that. We want to lift everyone up. Really? And the only ones I'm seeing and we're witnessing right now as evidence has been lifted up is illegal immigrants, right? Not only that, we have a history in this country where race has played a major impact on our people, our ethnic group. And for some reason right now, we don't want to focus on how America hasn't righted or made the wrong sins wrong against our ethnic group right in this moment, right? We're still having this conversation. So I say it's lies. And I'm going to go with some mental illness of denial. No, I'm going to just go with denial. I'm going to go with some denial there. Okay. Yeah. Abnormal.
Yeah. I mean, and we can go ahead and chalk that up to mental illness because here and from my view, now I'm not the mental health professional like George is, but I don't have enough mental health issues that I feel like a professional. Okay. But I would add mental health to it because how do you run to be the chief operating officer of a country and you can't speak the truth about history? You can't speak the truth because she's being discriminated against herself. So there's too many things and she's not willing to admit to the reality. So how can you be our president and you can't even acknowledge the reality of what's going on in society? George, go ahead. You got it, sir.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Consuelo's assessment. They are definitely lies. This comes from a right-wing political, ideological agenda. They have the power to frame it any way they want to. Based on our previous discussion, remember, we're dealing with an amoral entity. So, trying to come at them saying, here's the facts, here's the truth, here's the right thing to do, that factor is not in their decision. What matters is their political agenda. And they're able to do that because the ultimate goal is economic exploitation. And that's how we as an African community, classified as a racially Black demographic, we're always in reaction to that. So now when they do those things, that sets us up in a reactionary mode to now we have to try to go prove to them that it really is racism, which they already know it is. But the goal is to get us distracted and get us inflamed emotionally and psychologically gaslit to put our energy in dealing with something that is really non-debatable.
So, and I like that idea. And I think, if we were way back in the 1600s and this part of the conversation had, was happening then, we might have been able to overcome and offset the entrenchment of race. But we've been dealing with race for so long, for centuries over centuries over centuries, that I question how we can overcome this social construct as people in one country, whether we're Black, white, brown, yellow, orange, whatever. How can we overcome that and all of a sudden all be on the same accord or operate with the same understanding that, race no longer exists and you're just a human, as am I, and boom, let's all go down, the yellow brick road. Last week you said it can happen. People just have to believe. I mean, but how realistically, how can we go and actually adopt and begin to operate under this race is a social construct piece?
So the title of your, were you asking me or were you asking Consuelo?
I'm asking you, but the floor is open. It's open.
Okay. The title of this podcast is "If Race is a Social Construct, How is that a Benefit to Black Americans?" And in my work, I consult with a lot of organizations addressing the connection between mental health and race. And I find it productive first to make sure that everybody's operating on the same terminology. So first, if you all don't mind, let's make sure we're speaking about the same thing. What is race? What is race?
Well, I'm going to defer to you to provide that definition. That way, we're not even putting inaccuracies in the atmosphere. So you tell us what race is.
Okay. Race is an ideology of white supremacy created by the European in the 1600s to justify the first act of systemic racism, which was the transatlantic slave trade. And in doing that, he legally created two labels, white and black. Prior to the 1600s, there was no such thing as black and no such thing as white. People did not identify by the features of their body.
Okay.
So it was legally written in, and white was written in legally as superior, and black was deemed as inferior. As a matter of fact, the African was legally classified as 3/5 of a human being. So he wasn't even fully human. He was chattel, no, hardly any better than animal. And this was legal. And so that justified cramming them in the boats and taking them miles across the sea, swimming in their own feces and being thrown overseas, getting sick and being abused, mutilated, all that trauma and torture that we still hold in ourselves today. We still have that the trauma of our past in ourselves today. So that's race. It has no basis in biological validity. It is not scientifically accurate. So in other words, what I'm saying is this concept of black people and white people is fictional.
Mm-hmm.
So now the second question would be, are we on the same page about what a social construct is? And since this isn't a question, this is not a question and answer environment, I'm going to answer what a social construct is.
Thank you.
A social construct is any idea that more than one person or persons agree to. It does not have to be scientifically valid. It doesn't have to be based in any type of objective fact or knowledge. It's just if we say that this cup is now a key, and enough of us agree that this cup now becomes a key, that's our new social construct. We have socially constructed this cup to now be a key. Now, someone might say that's not a key. That's a cup. But it doesn't matter what you say because we have enough people that agree socially that this is now a key. And that's what they did with race. They got enough people to agree that these people, because they look this way and act this way, are now going to be deemed as inferior according to European standards. And we have been living by that and still live by that ever since the 1600s.
Okay. Now, you know what? Thank you for that. That's great. Because I just saw a video the other day where some lady was saying, I'm not a human being. I'm an android. I'm an avatar. I'm a this, I'm a that.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be just this open embracement for individuals who I'm a TV. I'm a this, so in that regard, it would seem like this race being a social construct and getting it all out of the way and, would be easy to do. But I got a feeling that because of the, some of this melanin, that there's going to be issues with that. I do want to take just a quick moment. Shout out to people in the Twitter space. Got Queen Bee in the house. Freedom, Prime Freedom in the house, who's co-hosting on them Twitter streets for me. And then again, shout out my guest over here on the streets, Consuelo. Prime, you had your hand up. I'm presuming you had a good question, so you're free. Yes, sir. Go ahead and unmute your mic and present your question, please.
Much love and respect to you,
To you.
Miss Mel, in the On Your Head podcast.
That's where we at.
Oh yeah, and of course, much love and respect to Miss Queen B. She is a lovely lady, and both of y'all are beautiful ladies at that. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
I did have my hand up, and it was to address the topic, but I stepped in and I stepped into some. I know you're on the YouTube. I'll just say I stepped into some real stuff, listening into what I don't know if you're interviewing someone, but
Yes.
I heard them say if you get enough people to agree to something socially, it becomes accepted. So this social construct of race has been socially accepted, even though it is pseudoscience, even though it has zero to do with objectivity, DNA, and objective reality and objective facts. And this is what we're faced with. Race is a social construct. That is an absolute fact, meaning that it is no different than us accepting the movie Star Wars. We know that it is not real, but most of us, or many of us, like the movie Star Wars, and we just accept it as what it is. But there is no real Yoda. There is no real Luke Skywalker. There is no real Darth Vader. That being said, it's for facto, there is no real such thing as race. We just socially agree to it due to the system and the imposing of this racist classification for the justification of the spiritual warfare, which all of this originated from. So, how is that a benefit to Black Americans? Race is not a benefit to Black Americans. It's not a benefit to Black Americans. I think that our connection to Blackness is profound. It is profound. And I think that, excuse me, I think that if we acknowledge the racism, we have to take action, constructive action, to remedy the racism. So you would have to, quote unquote, you would have to abolish race within all in itself. It would have to go back to the old days when race was not even existence. But now that it's here, we have to be aware and acknowledge it and take action in the spirit of the acknowledging of racism, and I'll say producing justice by any means necessary. I landed right there. Thank you so much, Ms. Mel.
Oh no, thank you, because what you really did was served as an interpreter, and I love how you broke that down, Friedman, and really just kind of restated it, and in layman's terms, and so much grace and appreciation to you, Consuelo. Let's see, you've been sitting there, girl, simmering, and just try. I need to hear from you now. What's
Okay, so first I want to point out how the abnormal pathology is becoming normalized with the social construct of race, right? We know that is pseudoscience, yet it has been something that they have created and made sure that this society specifically adheres to it in a way, right? And we didn't really have a choice when we were enslaved, right? And the fact that it wasn't a social construct initially, but it's rationalization of the mind to implement the racial construct to enslave people, which is still against the creator and the universe, right? Those against everything of the creator and free will, as well as you can take right now how you have transsexuals in society that are also saying, oh no, even though I present biologically as a male or biologically as a female, right, the sex, my gender says I'm different. Again, sort of like the racial construct analogy, right? Taking something, and as long as people agree to it and see it that way, then we have this group that says, no, this is normal, which it really isn't, but we're accepting it as normal, right? So with that, I think for us as Black Americans, because we have been in this social construct and we now accept Black as the antithesis to white, and in fighting them with the social construct, I think that is where it's going to be very difficult for us to just get rid of the social construct of race, because it has become our resistance in fighting against them in a way.
right?
Well, often when I'm doing this work, I just want to make clarification that My goal is not to do away with the construct. That's not my goal. My goal is to educate, because people need to make their own decisions. Once you've been given the proper information, then you use that information in ways that's best going to benefit you. So by no means am I saying, thus saith the Lord, here's my research, you all do exactly like I say. No, I'm just here to present people with the correct information, because one of the biggest contributors to the negative impact on our mental health is that we are misinformed. And that we have people who actually believe that race is real, that they actually believe that Black and white people are real. When you believe that, that will set you in a direction in terms of your strategies, your belief systems, the way you respond, the way you plan. It has a total impact. But when you're informed with the facts, now you can take this information about social construct and use it in a way that you think best benefits you.
I agree. I agree with that. Yes, because when you look at even in our so when you look at the ancient civilizations like Kemet, Nubia, and Kush, it was still Black land, Black soil. If you could drill down in the meaning of the words,
yeah,
right?
Kemet is Black land. That's correct.
Yes, and then even now, I love the Last Poets, and they have this last album or something. They put out this song and they explain what Black is, and they say Black is greatness, Black is elegance, Black is, it's all about how we define it in the moment instead, and utilize it in a way as a tool, as the antithesis to white supremacy. That's what I like about it.
And on that point, there's three categories, perspectives on race. There is the constructionist, there's the reconstructionist, and then there's what I am, which is a deconstructionist. The constructionist says, hey, race is cool. I'm cool with that. I love how this race thing's working. We don't need to make any changes. The reconstructionist refers to people that you just referred to, who want to take Black and make it mean something else than what it's being used for now. So they're trying to reconstruct the definition of Black. That's one way. I am more of a fan of the deconstructionist, which involves education, which actually gives you the fact of the matter first. Then what you do from there, you're in my perspective, you're better able to either be a reconstructionist or continue on as a constructionist. But when you don't know the facts, all these other things you do after the word are going to be off base. It's going to be a potluck 50-50 one way or the other. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to miss.
Okay, so let me jump in and ask this question, because, and like I said, I feel like in a small group setting, everyone could walk out of the room on the same accord, all thinking and feeling the same way, in total agreement with what you said, George. The problem is, as I see it, is how are we going to continue as Black Americans with the challenges that we endure in society, with all of the already predisposed mindsets about Black Americans? How are we going to switch over to this deconstructionist mindset? Because to me, that sounds like the best route to go, because because then we're no longer going to, if we all get on the same page, we're no longer operating under this race anything. So how do we get through? We already have, that's why I played this clip of Nikki Haley. We already have her sidewinding and not acknowledging history, whether she knew it or not. Maybe she didn't know, okay? But we have the people sidewinding, backpedaling, backstabbing on what has really happened in history, and then denying what's actually true. Well, there used to be racism, but not anymore. But the people that they do the inquiry of are not people who would give them an honest story. Like, no, I just had racism against me yesterday at the grocery store, type of thing. So they're not trying to deal with, they're not asking people that are the victims of this thing. So how do we make this crossover without losing any ground? And this is kind of leading me into these legacy organizations such as the NAACP.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm looking for. How do we all decide? Okay, boom, we're no longer going to recognize race, and we're going to move forward because that's going to advance us as Black Americans. How does that start? Can that really be done?
All right. So clarification again. Just
Mhm.
like I'm not saying I don't want to be confused with saying I'm trying to get rid of the social construct.
I know.
I'm also not saying let's not recognize race. I'm not saying that.
Mhm.
I'm saying let's understand what it is. And for somehow people automatically jump to the unsaid notion that means when you know the truth about it, you're supposed to just forget that it exists. No, you got to understand what it is. You can't address what you can't identify and don't understand. If you're going to take some action, you have to identify it. And
Okay.
most people who are actively trying to address race
Mhm.
don't know what race is.
So and I know because I've had conversations with you. So I know, I know where you're going, but what I'm trying to
Well,
do.
I know. Let me finish what I'm saying here.
All right.
So to move forward, what happens a lot when I'm doing this work, I work with people such as this panel,
Mhm.
very knowledgeable, very intelligent, very self motivating, not looking for anybody to do it for them. And as great as that is, those characteristics are, they get in the way when I'm presenting this approach, because it's hard for people who are intelligent, go-getters, and passionate to, for a minute, just set their current thinking to the side for a minute and objectively listen to a new way of looking at the problem. That's the first glitch. And what happens is, because you're so passionate about what you're trying to do, you're wanting to jump right to the end goal. What's the result? What's the result? What you don't realize, all of us, including me, have been generationally conditioned by this ideology. So if you take any action right now, all the actions you're taking right now with your current mindset are only going to get you the same outcomes.
All right, let me do a couple of things. One, let me shout out Dr. Nikki Proctor Walden. Thanks for pulling up, Doctor. I always appreciate you when you pull up. We do have Prime Reparationist hand is up. Shout out to Queen in the Twitter space, Deontay in the Twitter space, Jay Boopsy on the YouTube streets. Appreciate all of y'all. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Now, George, listen. Now, some of these people on Twitter, I even though their avatars are up, I know they're looking at me like, "Wait, Mel, you ain't chopped it up yet." Cause see, I'm being nice, and they know I'm being nice. So, and I know where you're coming from, George. I know you're trying to break it down and blase scoop. I know where you go, but hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I need to have happen.
Right.
Just for myself, and I think the Twitter folks is on the same tip. Shout out to Queen Bee laughing. Here's what we got to do, because in order for us to continue to follow this conversation with you leading it, you have got to tell us right now. Shout out to Too Persuasive. You've got to tell us right now. Okay, listen. I'm not saying do away with race. I'm not saying. Tell us now what it is, because tell us now. Okay, this is how you need to begin to process race being considered as a social construct without doing away with race. I need you to serve the plate up so we can tell you what we think.
I'm not saying do away with it. I'm not saying keep it. Okay. So again, every time you say something like that, it means you're jumping to the end goal. So I just want to keep that clear. I just want to inform you, because you're going to have to make your own decision. You may agree or may not agree with the things I'm going to say. My goal is not here for agreement or disagreement.
Absolutely.
Because this isn't even my personal opinion. I'm just sharing with you objective, factual information. If you have data factual data that disputes anything I'm saying, I welcome you to show to give me that, because that's how I get better. I'm only dealing with facts, not opinions. What people want to do is up to them. But as a mental health professional, factually speaking, racism is the number one stressor to our community. So the first step in being able to effectively address that stressor is you have to be educated. Just like with any other disease or disorder, you can't treat it until you understand it. And racism has been officially declared across the country a public health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is by the Centers for Disease Control, the American Medical Association, American Psychological Association. These are all objective, statistical, evidence-based organizations. So that means for a public health crisis, you have to use the public health intervention strategy, which is threefold: prevention, mitigation, and repair. So that means you have to ask yourself the question, how do you then, if racism is really a public health crisis, which it is, how do you prevent racism? How do you mitigate racism? And then how do you repair the damages from racism?
Okay.
No, I'm giving you really need to hear this, Fred, because this is action stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These are it's just not exciting. Most people are on an emotional tip with race. Mm-hmm. And they're coming from a moral perspective. Well, you mean white people, if y'all would just, and that gets the blood going, and people think that we're actually making action because we're telling white people what they need to hear, and we're speaking truth to power, and bomb. Not that those things don't need to be said, but is it effective? Because we're always in protest. We're in a constant state as an African community. We're in a constant state of heightened trauma. Just like listening to Nikki Haley today, for a lot of people who identify as Black, that's traumatic to hear someone continually gaslight us and say, "Oh, we're not a racist country." So these are things that the first step in treating this public health crisis is to become educated. Once you become educated, then you take that information and figure out how you're going to use it within your mission. If I understand Consuelo correctly, she's in one of her areas of passion is human trafficking. Racism is a direct feeder to human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And so when you can, if your human trafficking strategy does not have a race component strategy built into it, then you're missing 90% of the issue, because every aspect that racism involves creates those vulnerable people, those vulnerable populations, vulnerable to human trafficking. So this is really important stuff, and it needs to be done from an education-based, evidence fact-based perspective.
Okay, so let me do this. We got Freeman's hand is up again, and go ahead and unmute your mic, Freeman. Let's hear what you're talking about.
If you wanted to say something, I'm willing to go, but I really wanted to address what was said. Did you want to say something, Ms. Mel?
No, go ahead. Yes, you got it.
Okay, so you're asking about the solution, Ms. Mel, and I appreciate that. So I think you and I are on the same page. How do we get American freedmen to just disengage with the social construct? If we can agree that it's not real, and it's not scientific, and it's pseudoscience, and it's trash, why do we hold on to it? Me personally, I think that the solution to your question, or the answer to your question, is to work with people like Mel, or people like Queen, people like Beyonce, and everything descendant American. You work with people like that, like-minded people who agree, like-minded people who do have the Freeman consciousness, and they understand, or they have the education, as I don't know his name, but they already have the education and the understanding that it is nothingness. It is not science. It's pseudo, and it has to be abolished. Race has to be abolished because racism is the problem. You can never say there is no racism in the United States when you have badges and incidents of slavery, one of those things being called Black. One of those things being you racially identified as Black, or even Black Americans. So, that being said, the race has to be abolished. so Nikki Haley is a liar. Nikki Haley is a
Right.
liar. And
I feel you, brother. I feel you. I feel everything you're saying, man.
so freely off of her mouth that is disgusting. She is a liar to say
Yeah.
that racism doesn't exist, but also say she acknowledges and is proud of the Southern history. The South is known for its racism.
Mhm.
The South was definitely known for its racism. So the remedy must be race neutral if we're talking about politics, if we're talking about education, if we're talking about all areas of human activity. We're talking about laws, the enforcement of the law for the benefit, the exclusive benefit of the American freeman, the application of the law for the exclusive benefit of the American freeman, the production of justice for the exclusive benefit for the American freedman. I would say one of the solutions is politics. We always talk about reparations. We also can talk about how we already have these laws and policies in place. We just have an enforcement issue. We have an enforcement issue and we have an application issue. So that would be a part of the solution.
Yes.
If you ask me, we have to find like-minded people like you, Miss Mel, and put them as U.S. senators, like-minded people, and put them or you as the teachers in these institutions that's supposed to be teaching our freedmen babies. If this man is a part of the education, he can be a teacher, and that is a part of the solution. It has to be taught. I agree, the education is the solution or a part of the solution, but you have to weaponize the information. Information and knowledge is not so much power if you don't have the weaponization of the knowledge.
Right.
Yeah,
You
right.
don't apply the knowledge, which
Right.
is the pro facto, the wisdom, the experience, and the understanding. Applied knowledge is the power, not knowledge.
Applied knowledge. Right on, brother.
The
Right
knowledge,
on.
when you weaponize the knowledge for the benefit of
Weaponize.
the American
There you
people,
go.
that is the power.
Right.
That is the power, and that is what we need to do. I agree. The education is most definitely a part of it, but we have to weaponize that education
Right.
and impose our self-determination as American freedmen and help and make sure and guarantee that it benefits all of the American freedmen by any means necessary.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I
That's
mean,
it.
and the key word that you said, Prime, was applied knowledge.
Applied knowledge.
And somewhere, and I'm trying to make this connection. And Consuelo, maybe you could help me out before we get into that. Let me address some of the folks on the YouTube channel. Jay Boopsy, but it will not happen overnight because it has been around for so long. I do see people are waking up, and I do see some changes being made slowly but surely. And somehow, George, I feel like there's I'm some type of way. I'm not connecting with you.
I know.
Where I can't get you to come up out of the, from behind the lectern and you understand what I mean? Because I get what you're saying about we all have to have this. We all have to be informed and knowledge and educated and this and that and 2/3. But if your response is that before we can do anything, we all got to go to school. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm just trying to use this as an illustration. We need some, for people who have the mindset and share the perspective that you share. And you're not alone in it. I heard somebody.
I'm going to let Prime be my interpreter because he just said what I said in the very real way.
Okay.
Applied. No, it's not a but. It's applied. No, it's applied knowledge. Now listen. This is a psychological game being played on us. Race is a psychological game being played. So if I sound like I'm behind a lectern, then so be it, because this is important, guys. What I'm telling you is what our enemy understands. And if we're not as intelligent as he is about the game he's playing on us, then just going out and taking action, we're going to get the same result. We need to be educated and get the correct information with which to properly apply it. Because right now, the information we're using, if we were to rate ourselves as a Black community on how effective we are in dealing with racism, we would flunk because we're going on wrong information.
Okay. All right. So, Consuelo, there was a couple of times you looked like you were ready to make a statement.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you chime on in.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we are not understanding is that this, someone just said it, it's a systemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are not going to be able to get white folks, majority, or even now other people that are immigrating to our country thinking that it's okay to implement racism. And the thing that I think is very important is that we look at it from our paradigm, which education is important, but how do we counter it in different spaces, right? Because we work, we go out, we know about microaggressions, that we're in the corporate field and how that plays into the racism. I think that overall we have to look at one psychologically, understanding that this is a game of the devil or the evil or of the opponent, right? Or protagonist, antagonist. Yeah, we can look at it as this is the game that is being played. We know how it's set up. So now how do we counter it? First of all, we already know how the game has been played. Now we put things into action so that when we're in these spaces, that we're not internalizing it, we're not agreeing to it in a way, acquiescing to it, coalescing with it. So that may mean that, you know what, there are certain things that certain environments we don't need to be in. That may mean, you know what, I don't need this job if it means that I have to succumb to certain things to make them feel superior when I know I am great at what I do. And now I have to kind of lower myself to make sure, right, that they accept me because of their abnormality or their abnormal pathology. Yes. And that's what's been happening, right, with our ethnic group.
That's correct.
Now, let me just make this quick statement. So I don't know if we've got some TV or something, radio or something in the back. I don't know if we can either hit the mute on that one so that it's kind of chiming through on the stream. And here I need to reset and refocus this thing. It's just because it's imperative. And this is what I need out of both of you, both of you strong individuals. Mm-hmm. I need you guys, because I need you all to this is what I need to know. How are we going to begin to address this? And do not act this what is not helpful to our audience or to us is if we simply say, continue to get educated, because we have to be able to walk and chew this bubble gum at the same time. And if I agree with what you're saying, if what you're saying makes sense, but now I'm between a rock and a hard place because I'm like, okay, how can this paradigm that makes sense? I mean, it appears logical. Okay. How can I take that and work and walk within that paradigm in present day, knowing that we've got legacy organizations that were designed specifically for Black Americans? We have laws that were designed specifically for Black Americans that we can't get any heat behind, no teeth behind, no fire behind. Freeman, jump off the mic whenever you want to, sir. So we have all these things going on. Nobody's benefiting and pushing those things forward, but yet here you're coming, George, with this. You guys, I want to make you aware, and not just you. But you happen to be in the hot seat today.
No, it is just me, because I'm the only person speaking like this.
Yes, on this panel.
In the first, well, no, in many environments that I'm in, I'm in a large network doing this work. And yes, I'm the guy that's the crazy one speaking, let's get educated first. And so
but you're not the only one, because there are other people that I'm just saying to you, you're in the hot seat today on this panel because you are the only one on the panel espousing that. And we're here to hear it. But others of us have heard it elsewhere or variations of it. So the only thing what I'm trying to do, and that's why I feel like there's might be a piece of a connection missing, because what I want to have happen, we're not going to all become believers overnight. We're not all going to believe and be on the same level overnight after one conversation. Some people are going to get it. Some people aren't. It's going to require more discussion. But what I'm looking for from you is, because this is a paradigm that you are wholeheartedly behind, what I'm asking you is, okay, let me ask you this specific
So we got onto it partly last session, and we brought up the solution is simple, but the execution is what's the challenge. The solution is the Prescription for Black America, written by Dr. Claude Anderson. Just basic solution. The 5 areas to control: creating your economic base, with the economic base, you gain your political power. With your political power, you're able then to influence judicial representation and treatment. From there, you then create your own system of media, which we sorely lack on. Everybody's telling our story for us, except us. And then lastly is education. What we've been doing as an African community, racially demographic Black community, is the reverse. We've been starting with education, thinking that education will bring us wealth. That's not true. Statistically speaking, education is putting all of us in debt. You have to begin with your economic base. This is what every successful cultural group does. Now, you know that the racially Black demographic, Black people, the Black community, we are a group of consumers, not producers. All of our money, we have collectively much wealth as the 4th largest country in the world, attuned to about $1.4 trillion. And yet, all of that money immediately goes out of our community. So with us not having our own economic base, we're asking other people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. We don't spend money together. We don't create our own businesses. We're sending our children to their schools to be whitewashed. We're going to their systems of employment so that we have to assimilate to their standards. We are putting ourselves willingly at the feet of white supremacy, and then asking white people to make it better. That is a lesson in futility, an exercise in futility. So the prescription is Dr. Claude Anderson's 5 areas to control. Now, my premise is this: Black people will not be able to successfully implement that prescription because the Black mindset does not believe that it can create its own schools, that it can create its own banks, that it can create its own hospitals. Right now, they're whitewashing and book banning. And what are we doing as a collectively Black community? We're protesting to white people. It's not fair. Stop banning these books. Stop whitewashing our history. You know what I would say from a non-Black, a non-racial perspective? I'm like this: hey, Mr. White Man, thank you for being honest and telling me you don't want to teach my children what they need to know. So you know what? I'll take it from here. Your services are no longer required. Because if I have to beg you to teach my children what they need to know about themselves, then you're not the service for me. That's a different mindset.
Okay.
And I'm going to give some pushback on that, because that is something that has happened in the last, I would say, 50 years. We've been very independent and creating different innovations, even in this last modern decade, right? Your cell phone, your computer, VoIP and security systems and things of that nature. Now, I do think that we need to start looking at ourselves from a different perspective. And that perspective is, I love to bring in Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, yes, and her breaking down how the white mentality and psychology works. You know, it's always them going up against us because they're in fear of annihilation. And we have to understand that, yes, they're never going to empower us. We can empower ourselves. We have empowered ourselves in the past. We can do it now. And many of us are understanding that it is a requirement that we do it now. Now, for mental health, I will say this. The American Psychological Association came out in 2021 saying that they have harmed people of color.
Yes.
And in that, to me, This is the perfect time for us to take our own mental health and our own organizations and say, you know what,
Right.
we can provide our own mental health for our own communities.
Right.
Forget you. We don't need you, right? Because you can't do this work. We need to do this work for our own. Same thing for education, right? And in Florida, I'm between two different states. In Florida, I was attempting to work with legislators. But you know what? They want to keep us out.
They want to keep us out. That's right.
Right? Because we are here for the change. There are many of us ready to enact this change, get it out into the community. But you know what? We're being fought because there's something else going on here besides, this is my personal opinion, besides of us really being able to self-actuate. They don't want us to.
Right.
They're going to come at us any way they can to keep us from making sure we make that top tier of self-actualization. Because once we do, it's over for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so now we're cooking. Okay. This is where I was trying to get us to, what I want us to put into the atmosphere so that we can, because there are some people that don't want to do anything. They want to say, oh yeah, you're right. Race is a social construct. They have no idea what it means. They don't, and they don't know what to do. And whatever, like what you just suggested, Consuelo, they're not up to that challenge. Okay. So this is, I'm hearing some background. Is there a TV on? Like maybe some cartoons or something like that. But I don't know if we can try to minimize that. So all right. Thank you. Now we're getting where we need to go. So some more fire has come up on the YouTube panel in Dr. Nikki Pratt Walden. I know I'm saying the name wrong. We got Nikki on, Dr. Nikki on deck. Nikki, I want you to unmute your mic. Also in the Twitter streets, we do have JV. Hand is up. Freedman's hand is up. Dr. Nikki, we want to hear from you. Go ahead. What's up, lady? Thank you for pulling up.
First of all, it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. You are just one of my favorite intellectuals. So I want you to add that title to the myriad of things you already have going on with your fabulous self.
Okay.
Because you are an intellectual.
Awesome.
So it bothers me. First of all, hello to the rest of the panel. It bothers me.
Or Dr. Nikki.
Hey, sister. It bothers me immensely for people to say that for Black people and the Black experience, our resolution is simple. To me, that is a very uneducated analysis of the work that it takes in order for us to have upward mobility. Now, with me saying that, because again, this is like, people write dissertations on these types of conversations that you're having here. So in order for me to, just kind of hit it and quit it, I want to expound on my comment in the chat. There are institutions that we negotiate, navigate, matriculate on a daily basis. And when I say institutions, I'm not just talking about education, because education is one of those institutions. So I want to qualify that. I'm talking about healthcare. I'm talking about religion. I'm talking about family. I'm talking about government. I'm talking about judicial. That's what I mean by institutions. So anybody can look those up. If you don't know how those institutions function, what their mode of operation is, what their responsibilities are, then you can't even begin to see how for Black people, those systems are broken. And what I'm saying is that when you don't know these things, oftentimes we are fighting in the wrong direction. And that is by design. Because if you're fighting in the wrong direction, or if you're fighting the wrong adversary at that particular time, then you're never going to get a resolution, and you will continue to not receive the proper agency which you are most deserving of by being a human being and a United States citizen, if that makes sense to the people that, are on the panel. So In other words, when you don't know what racism looks like in education, when you don't know what racism looks like in healthcare, when you don't know what racism looks like in the judicial system, it's not as simple as I am Black, you are white, I am the have not, and you are the haves. It looks different. It manifests itself differently. And these very intricate systems are so tightly woven to where it takes so many levels of consciousness and education in order for you to even begin to understand it and break it down so that you can then fight it. So again, in other words, if you don't know what it is, what the problem is, then you can't address it immediately or effectively because you think that it's always something else. I'm sure you all have heard the term that people are not always fighting about what they're angry over.
True. Yes.
That's what I'm talking about with the way racism works by design. It is a system. So I don't quite understand, and I don't have the literature or haven't done the reading that my brother on the panel has done to, forward this idea that it's a mental illness. A mental illness is what I would call reductionist theory, because we have medicines for mental illnesses.
So I'd like to speak to that if I can.
Yes, go ahead, George.
And I definitely appreciate the doctor's passion. First, clarification on this: your assertion that I said solution was simple. I said the solution is simple because the it's already being done, so you don't have to create that. But its implementation is what the challenge is.
Let me interject. If you're saying something is done, that means it's implemented. So I'm confused.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the solution already exists. Dr. Claude Anderson wrote the prescription years back. So the solution does not have to be created. Our challenge is, why aren't we implementing what we should be implementing? That's the challenge. That's the hard part. And my premise in that is the reason we're not implementing Dr. Claude Anderson's stated strategy is because of our current mindset, which is a racial mindset. We're operating from a racial perspective,
and I disagree.
I understand, and that's fine. But statistics will support what I'm saying, that the internalization of racial identity limits our belief to do things that we should be able to do. Because again, the prescription for success for the African community is there. And here it is in 2024, and we're not doing it. At some point, we have to be honest and reevaluate how we're thinking. And that's why I'm addressing this from a mental health standpoint, because there's plenty of research that shows the connection between the trauma of race and its impact on mental health.
So is ignorance a mental health issue?
Ignorance means lack of knowledge.
That's what
ignorance means, lack of knowledge, and it can definitely have impact on your mental health. And the fact that
that's not what I asked you. I said, is ignorance a mental health issue?
I just gave you your answer.
No, you didn't. You skirted around the answer. What I'm saying is this: you can write all that you want. If you don't articulate an execution plan, you just have a lot of strategies, and it doesn't matter.
Let's have a respectful conversation, okay?
This is respectful.
All right, because this is part of the things that we do as an African community is we attack each other. And I'm
not attacking you. Are you Claude Anderson?
May I finish, please?
Are you Claude Anderson?
I let you finish, and I'm trying to respond directly to you, and I'm trying to have a productive discussion.
I do understand him, Mr. Boopsy.
So if I could finish, because I don't want us to go down a rabbit hole of back and forth and stuff. That's disrespectful to you. I respect your educational piece, and I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm not asking anyone to agree with me. I'm just presenting factual information. If you have facts that disprove that, I am really open to receiving that. But right now, you're just giving me your opinion, and I have.
I'm giving you my researched opinion.
I'd love to see that research, because it's not correct. And what I'm saying is that there is plenty of research that shows the connection between mental health implications, the lack of knowledge that we have about race, and how that impacts our mental health. And that is why the American Psychological Association wrote their apology letter that Consuelo alluded to, because it admitted that it has been a primary contributor to scientific racism. In the letter, that's what they state specifically, that we contributed to this notion of scientific racism and implemented it in our policies, practices, and intervention methods. That letter is the foundation of why I, as a mental health therapist, am doing this work, because I understand the racial disparities in my field of mental health. And so that,
which is one small slice of the pie.
And that gets to what your second point, which is racism looks different in different systems. The best way to, the way that we can address and identify how racism impacts these systems is called racial disparities. And racial disparities are statistical data of the outcomes of service, whether it's in education, employment, health, wealth. You pick the system of service, and there are statistically collected racial disparities data. And here's the thing about racial disparities, and I teach this all the time. Racial disparities always have the following components. One, and this is the most shocking one, racial disparities are preventable. That means they don't even have to happen. That just blows my mind. And I say this all the time, but when I think about that, it just kind of blows my mind to know that when we get ready to go do our service and service our community, that we don't have to have these disparities we're having. We don't have to have them. They're not intractable. Secondly, racial disparities are a reflection of the system providing the services, not the people receiving the services. Often what happens, people will say, if Black people would just stop having babies, if Black people would just keep dads in the home, if Black people would just stop taking drugs, all this stuff. That's not what disparities are. Disparities are a statistical reflection of the system servicing that community. That's important to know. Now, here's the most, really, all these are important, but this one is the most significant. Racial disparities are always driven by racial bias. So with those three things, that is the prescription to address racism, by targeting racial disparities. That means whatever your area of discipline is, your system that you're in, you need to be able to identify the disparities unique to your organization and be educated on how this race piece is working, so that you can now become a proponent of change.
All right, George, let me jump in here real quick. And I do want to acknowledge the hands in the Twitter space. JV and Prime, you guys have your hands up, and okay. I like where this conversation is going. Here, based on the letter from the AMA, that apology letter.
APA.
AMA, yeah. APA, you said?
Yeah, American Psychological Association.
Thank you. I stand corrected. But based on that apology letter, so now you have people from a big spectrum, all walks of life, impacted by the fact that they did not acknowledge this disparity and this racial piece. They now they're acknowledging it. The harm has been done. All right. We cannot expect that all of these people are now going to go somewhere and sit down and take a class. So again, where I'm trying to get to, this is what I want us and the audience and the listeners to walk away with, is this is what we do next. Let me do this. Let me do this.
All right.
Let me do this. Let me run this clip real quick, and let's bring this thing back to reality. This is
Mel.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. May I please just acknowledge that he just reiterated what I said, but I'm glad he said it in a way that makes him feel like we understand one another.
Okay.
About the institutions and what racism looks like in the respective institutions.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to acknowledge that clearly.
Okay. Yeah. You said it. You said it. Let me run this clip and bring us back to reality, because let's run the clip.
Listen. On behalf of the NAACP, we're disinviting you to this event. This is a private event. We're asking you, please, Please leave.
I haven't even said that. I've been sitting here on the phone.
We're asking you, please, this way, please.
Well, can you just give me an explanation?
Talk about reparations. Come on.
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah. Please, this way, please.
This is on behalf of the NAACP?
Come on, y'all. This is so unfair. This way, please.
Now, this is real life.
Who's that group?
Well, shout out to Black Alpha on YouTube and every other social media platform. They were in South Carolina. Shout out to Marcel Dixon for Congress. But this group, Black Alpha and his crew, went to South Carolina, and the legacy organization of the NAACP disinvited them. And as you heard in the clip, this is a private event on public grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so this is what I'm talking about as far as real life. Can you imagine someone hearing and participating in a conversation as the one we're having now, and then they go to something like this, and confusion abounds?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm getting at is we've got legacy organizations who, whether they recognize race or it's a social construct or get the hell out of here, whatever it is, the point of the matter is Black Americans are still getting jacked up. And so when we have individuals, and that's why I said to you, George, that you're the only one on the panel now hot seating it up, okay? Because you're the only one who is in support and sponsoring this paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the only one in society who holds that. And some of us have heard this nature of discussion from others. So we're not unfamiliar with it. We just may not be at an expert level on it. So what I'm trying to draw a connection so that the next time we're looking at our legacy organization or any other organization, we don't walk away confused and disheartened and just, like, what the hell I'm still in the damn sunken place. So how do we take this perspective you're saying? And yes, when you kind of undergirded it with Claude Anderson and his perspective, but one thing Claude Anderson doesn't say specifically, he did break down how race came into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not tell us to operate as though race does not exist. He essentially tells us how to operate within this construct because everybody and their uncle is operating under it as well.
Are you hearing me say, are you hearing me say that to operate as if race doesn't exist?
No. I'm not saying that. No, I don't hear you. No, I know. You're not saying that. Okay. And a lot of people aren't saying that. But what they are saying is, hey, race is a social construct. So we still have to draw and make it make sense because what you're saying makes sense. And what these others who are mirroring similar to what you're saying, that makes sense. But it's making the connection so we can operate within that paradigm and continue to be successful. So before you respond to that, let me hear from JV, then Freedman, and then George, you can respond after these two. Go ahead, JV, you got the mic. Shout out to Yusuf in the Twitter space.
Hey, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yeah, to the question of if race is a social construct, absolutely. Can it benefit us? It absolutely can. From what I understand, most things are social constructs, and race is just being another thing that insulates people to a group. I think the issue more, it's not scientific, and that's how it's presented. It's not real science. There's no genetic marker that really could describe this group or this race that have similarities that anybody else doesn't have. And I think that has been a problem with this race thing because that's how they have framed it to exclude us. Initially it was we had like little skulls, little brains, or God manifested us to be whatever. And now they're making it like the brother was saying is some type of inherent problem with us for us to scale economically and so forth. Market forces is what has created our situation. And I think that's what the problem is. The problem is not so much race. It's how they exclude us and curtail us until this environment where we can't access wealth. And I keep hearing that on this forum that the problem is we have to do something for ourselves, or we have to, I forget the word that was used, something we have to empower ourselves. But I think nothing is further from the truth. We have constantly showed that we empower ourselves. On every metric, we have done good. We perform great in every metric. The issue has always been that we have been excluded in this country. And another thing was said that there are other groups here who have done it and we need to do the same thing. Well, that's absolutely not true. Every other group has been subsidized by this United States government, and people like to call our government white people. I think that's so disrespectful. This is our government, right? We should advocate to our government. We have that right. If we don't, what are going to be like some rebel force just living in the woods? Like, no, we're going to have to get things and concessions from government. Corporations are the biggest recipients of these concessions. You also have the bankers 2008. I mean, listen, man, like we've updated our information. Shout out to Claude Anderson and shout out to the to the brothers from before who felt like we should enable ourselves, but we have context, right? We have people who have built banks and put black banking together. These things are failures because you're going to create an insular community within a larger community, and this insular community has 1.5% of the wealth. So, I mean, I implore people to try to update their curriculum. You have Richard Rothstein. He put out The Color Law, Color Money, Mercer. You also have New Jim Crow. Like, these are direct attacks against us. There's nothing we're doing inherently that is creating failure. And like the brother also said, that the disparities are there. It's not the issue, it's the disparity. So I'm trying to like combine everything in one statement because I know you have a lot of people on the panel, but that's ultimately my point. There's nothing wrong with race. It's something wrong with us being excluded as this race group.
Sure. Okay. And thank you for that. Friedman, go ahead, unmute your mic. And then Consuelo, I need you to, once Friedman is finished, I want you to swing in here and bring into line the current political piece that you're moving, because again, that is critical as well. So go ahead, Friedman, you got the mic, sir.
Okay. So I think we need to focus on what we agree on. I think many of us agree that race is a social construct, and because of it's a lot of noise in the background.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too. Let me see. Let's see. All right, go ahead.
No doubt. Thank you.
Sure.
So I think we need to focus on what we agree on. What we agree on. Race is a social construct. I think we all agree on that. Now, that being said, we have to move forward from that. Is race a political solution? Is race a political solution? Is it the solution for our salvation? I say no. Why? Because we understand that race is based off racism. Racism is based off race. And you cannot have the problem, which is racism, as a part of the solution. That being said, another solution is if you are an educator like George, or I think Nikki is as well, I don't know everybody's name, your position would be to be an educator or whatever else individual skills you have to teach about racism and how it negatively affects the American freedmen. That can be your contribution. I don't think we need to be in disagreement about that. I think we need to focus on what each of us can do individually and independently for the greater good of the American freedmen. So if I think his name is George and Nikki,
totally agree with you, brother.
Part of Ms. Mel, you're a part of the education as well, or we'll put you in the media aspect because you are a media representative for the American freedmen. That is your lane, and that is what you do well, among other things.
Right.
That would be your contribution for producing justice for the American freedmen. It's so many of us, millions of us, so millions of us can be a part of the solution. Does that make sense? Of course it does. So I don't think we need to be in disagreement about anything, really. I think in this conversation, we need to focus on what we agree and how we can be agreeable to the solutions when it comes to reparations, when it comes to education, when it comes to politics, when it comes to war.
Right.
We are at war. Psychological, chemical, biological, spiritual, all of the above. We need to focus on what we agree on and come to agreeable solutions, and we organize and get together on making those agreeable solutions an actualization, a reality. And our history shows, as American freedmen, we are the original freedom fighters, and we are the original solution people in this country. So I'll just land it right there. Denzel Washington is flying this plane upside down, the greatest American.
Can I speak to that just real briefly?
Yeah.
Cruz?
Yes,
Okay,
me.
just real briefly. Again, he completes me. He's my interpreter.
Yes.
Because I know I come from a very academic perspective, and I got to get his number so he can help me communicate better to the masses. Because he said it beautifully. You know,
Yes.
this should not be a debate amongst like-minded people. You know, we don't have to agree. Again, I never come on any of these discussions to get people to agree with me, because really, I'm not giving you any of my personal opinions. I'm giving you objective research. So if you have a disagreement, it's with the facts. Okay, it's not with me. So it's not personal to me. Your example that you show with the NAACP and what was it, Black what?
That was Black Alpha.
Black Alpha. That's an example of what my brother is talking about, is that it's ironic that you have two groups who are being afflicted with the same issue at odds with each other. And so we shouldn't be discussing this thing, even if we have differences of perspectives, in disagreeable ways. Everybody, as my brother just said, has something to bring to the table. So when I bring the perspective about education, I'm not by any means saying that is the only solution. I'm saying that's an important part of the solution to add with all of the other things that you're doing. The Dr. Claude Anderson, again, this is right up of what he's saying, which is because my work is really a step up from his work. His prescription has been around for a long time. We are not applying it because of how we're thinking. And the brother made a comment that I just want to bring some clarity on. Race is a problem. Race is a problem. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it is a problem. It's a problem because we're not educated on how it's impacting us. And what we tend to do is we will conflate individual success, because we see one or a few of us make it, as collective success. And so what happens is sometimes the most difficult person to speak with about racial issues is the successful, quote unquote, Black person, because that person feels like, well, I made it, so everybody else can make it. But the fact is that racism is systemic, not individual. Don't get fooled by just because you got 6 figures and some initials behind your name and you live in the suburbs, that racism is over because you're doing the Nikki Haley thing. And we tend to fall in that. So Dr. Claude is saying we need to work collectively as a community. And what is a community? A community is one that can get 90 to 95 of its quality of life needs met within its community before it leaves to go out. We are not a community. We're just a bunch of people with a place to sleep. Because when we wake up, we have to leave our community to get jobs, to get education, to get food, to get health. All of these systems have racial disparities and are not giving us good service, and they're contributing to our mental dysfunction.
Yes. Okay. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's really a lot. It's a lot to digest and a lot to take. So here, Consuelo, now we're going to swing this into you. And again, I want to shout out to the people in the Twitter space. Isla, looks like Black Natives in the spot. We got Yusuf, Queen, Deontay. You guys feel free to request a mic if you'd like to come up. You're more than welcome to. We're also live on YouTube, Facebook, and IG. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you would, please. Be most appreciative of that. So here's the other thing. I kind of like what you said, George, about Black Americans. We're just. I've heard people refer to America as an open air prison for Black Americans. We just out here. You know what I'm saying? We out here. Ain't nothing for us other than all of the institutions that have been designed to ensure that we never really make it to the top. And the ones who do make it to the top, far few in between, are still repping for the Black American. But Consuelo, especially for you, now I want you to take a couple of minutes. I want you to get on in there because you're working with a very, oh man, this guy you're working with is like, he's lit. And the issue he is addressing is lit. And I want to try to see how does the deal that you guys are working on and this race is a construct, because I heard somebody in the space last night say race is not a social construct, so I want you to tell us about that. And I'm trying to see how do we make this race being a social construct, understanding that paradigm, and see how we can advance more positively or further down the field based on what it is you're doing. So Consuelo, please, if you would.
Okay, so you will hear me in spaces with Mark Carter, right? We speaking of Mark Carter and what he's doing in Chicago. Now, one of the things that Mark Carter likes to teach and educate people is that we give the white supremacists power by calling it white supremacy, right? You see how we psychologically psych ourselves out when we say white supremacy. We give them the power. Well, if we would just say, hey, they're racist and they're biased. And racists are no longer just white people, right? Certain people in our, you just showed in AACP. In AACP has really never been an entity for us. However, we had some of our ancestors that were a part of the NAACP. They left because of the racism within the organization, right? So here we are embracing an organization today that does not really represent us. And we're going into their space, and I'm going to highlight how we're not really protecting ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We are going into these battles unprotected and not prepared because we are already playing into their biases about us. So we speak about when we're doing this work, we're looking at everybody as someone that is going against us unless they are with us. And I think it's a great opportunity. I like taking negatives and turning them into positives, because at this point in time, what has been revealed to us is that we don't need them, right? If we look at everything that is happening, we don't need them. So therefore, why do we continue to play into this racial construct?
Love it. Love it.
You see where I'm going?
Yes.
So we are making sure that when we go into these spaces and we are speaking for us as who we are, and then you know what they think doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Who cares about what they think?
Who cares?
We are humans, we are intelligent, and I like to say it all the time, we're the ones that built, developed, and advanced this nation, and they could have done it without us. So I think it's about self-esteem, and that goes back to the psychological warfare.
That's right.
When we understand that, you know what, they can't do nothing to us, because if they did, they wouldn't survive. And I'm going to go back to Dr. Francis Quest Welsing again, because at the end of the day, all of this is coming because they don't have what we got, right? So when I'm working with Mark and building out, one of the things we want to do is get, I think George spoke on it. We have to get people in positions that think like us. Or maybe it was Freeman, your interpreter, George, that like us.
Right. Well, he damn sure been interpreting today.
Yes.
He's today, Freeman, because George was about to get it. Okay, both barrels 5 times. Okay.
We got to get our people in position that can get into spaces, and then we do what we do. We don't think about what they're attempting to implement, and we have to counter. Yes, we will have to counter. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think, as I see us move forward and things are happening, people get a little fearful about what we're doing, but we don't have to fear, because guess what? If we stand together and there's power in numbers, I believe in that. And then it takes a certain amount of us consciousness that is only going to continue to go out into the community. That energy just becomes very contagious. And then we will be in different spaces doing a great deal of things for ourselves and taking over. Because at the end of the day, others have had help, right?
Very much so.
Right. The system is set up so they can get the help and we not what? Get any.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got JV's hand up in the Twitter space. Shout out to Brother Muko. Brother Muko, you already know, grab a mic when you get good and ready. JV, go ahead and unmute your mic and let's hear what you're talking about.
Yes, I threw something up in the Jumbotron. And that's a source from Color of Money. And it challenges this idea that Black people don't understand racism or we don't understand what's going on. And also that somehow we're just going to put our money together and fix the problem. In that source that I provided, it's an article or a study called The Poor Pay More. And it shows how predatory lending, contract leasing, and all these things have constantly been an obstruction to us. In fact, it costs more for us to patronize one another as opposed to going outside of our limits and patronizing others. This is how the system has been designed. And the idea that we're going to put our money together, there's also a study out that indicates that most of our money, a greater percent, goes to our basic needs, housing and just basic things. We don't have surplus income. So these misnomers about spending power and this idea that we don't understand racism, I just think those are antiquated ideas. And again, we have to update our information. I also have sources that I can provide it. But we have to be truthful because misinformation is an issue, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Let me go ahead.
So I got to speak to that real quick.
Well, let me read the source that he put in the Jumbotron, just so that the people on benefit of YouTube and Facebook and IG can buy into it. So, according to JV, the source he posted, it reads: the money pit economy of the ghetto meant that Black consumers paid much more for everything than those living just across the color line. In the 1963 study, The Poor Pay More, Columbia professor David Klapowitz described the debt market in the ghetto as a deviant one in which exploitation and fraud are the norm rather than the exception. Specifically, he found that residents of New York ghettos paid much higher prices, unbelievably high, according to the author, for goods than anywhere else. These customers were not buying more goods than the average consumer or even relying more on credit, but they obtained considerably less value for their dollar. Another 1968 study conducted by the Federal Trade Commission reported that 93% of the sales in the ghetto were on installment, compared with only 27% in white suburbia. Thank you for that information, JV. All right, George, you wanted to respond? What's that?
So I'm respectfully disagreeing or challenging the brother's assertion that the noting of consolidating, being collective in our income as an African community is outdated. Every successful community is collectively, economically interactive. Every successful community, and again, this is right out of Dr. Anderson's book. Every successful community has first a successful Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm not Black, but a successful Chamber of Commerce respective to their cultural group. We don't support our chambers of commerce across the country. Our chambers of commerce are in the least, they are the weakest compared to Hispanics and all of the other respective cultural groups' Chamber of Commerce. So if we don't have an economic base independent, as Consuelo was saying, independent of what they do, we should have processes that don't hinge on what others do. We do not have that. If we don't, if all we have is our mouth with no money, we've got nothing, because they don't respect talk. They don't respect protest. They don't respect all the things you're saying you're going to do. Here's what they do respect: economic muscle. So when you show that you are economically solvent within yourself, then you start to get respect economically. Right now, we don't have that. So even with the vote, we take that to the vote. We think the vote is power. The vote is not the power. And Dr. Anderson again says this. He says, really, as an African community, the vote is the least important aspect to our solution. If you go back and check out his work, he'll tell you that. He's not saying not to vote, but he's saying the vote is not where the power is. The power is the economic muscle. When you have an economic muscle, you can then begin to have political power. Right now, we've got no political power because we don't have an independent economic base. So it's just not an outdated notion.
Can I just say something behind him?
Please do. Yes.
Okay. So I am preaching and teaching and educating that economics is politics, politics is economics. You have corporations in your community and we're running them, then we're going to have an economic base, right? So I'm gonna give you an example of something that just happened that was not good. I didn't feel it was good within my soul. You all know about Honey Pot. I'm gonna speak on it, right? You heard about Honey Pot. She makes all these it's intellectual property. She's making feminine hygiene for women, Black women, a good base, right? Mm-hmm. And then now she still has some minority ownership. She had majority ownership, but has teamed up with another entity. That entity at some point in time can oust her because she no longer has majority share. And then she's still over the development of the company as a CEO. Now, for me, when I look at that, I'm like, wow, just gave up a lot because that's one, could be employment within the community, manufacturing right here in the United States, although I don't think she's manufacturing here at the present moment. So those are, when I see things like that in Black women that have built corporations, major corporations, right? And we're supporting them. Right? To build them up. And then the next thing you know, they sell to a white entity.
Absolutely.
That to me is not going to work for us as a community. I have to say that.
Agreed.
And I will state as well, we have some, unfortunately, I just had an experience, went to a Black-owned business, and the pricing and the prices of the food was astronomical for me. And we said, okay, it's still a Black-owned business. We're going to sit here and we're going to support them. But then they tacked on an entertainment fee. And I was like, what? That has never happened to me. I've been in major markets. They don't do that. So I'm just like, I'm questioning sometimes, what is it that we're thinking, how we're building in our communities as business owners as well?
Absolutely.
What are we?
Yes. And now we got Yusuf Colburn coming up to the stage before he gets up off his mic. I'm glad you brought up Honey Pot because when I was going through everything last night, trying to get everything together, and here's the other thing, George, last week when you were here, we talked about the Fearless Fund. You said they're not going to win their case. I agree with you. They agree with you. But I have a problem with Fearless Fund. And I'm bringing this piece up because, and you did say this last week as well, George, about, we need to get in touch with our, hook up and line up with the, what is it? The consumer, what's it called? Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, yes.
And here's the thing. I'm concerned about hooking up with any other entity that's been around for a long time, such as Chamber of Commerce is, because we cannot determine until after the bamboozle has occurred whether they were for us or not. But here's what I want to highlight, this piece from the Fearless Fund. And then I'm going to tell you why I feel how I feel once this is done. Check this out, y'all.
What I want people to know about everything going on is that we are not on the front line for ourselves. As I stated before, we don't need just the Fearless Fund. We need fearless funds. We are standing up for every single funding source that funds minorities, people of color, and women as a whole. That's who we are on the front line for. When we win, we all win. But if we were to ever lose, in which we are not, then everybody would lose.
And this lady's beautiful. Appreciate the way she, spit the tea. But you're about to become a legacy organization, or at least an organization that one could respect. But I can't respect it because you're not specific to the people that don't get it. If you don't help us, lady, nobody else is.
What do you mean she's not specific? Tell me more about that.
With the people of color and women overall.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That's a problem. And for you not to recognize this, for you to be a Black woman, for you to be going head to head with Bloom of all people, and you still talking at BIPOC, people of color, women of this, just women in general. No. And this is why when we say, get together with the Black Chamber of Commerce, well, we got the Congressional Black Caucus, and they're doing everybody but us. We have the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And that was way before we had Guatemalans and Ecuadorians and all these other ethnicities that have recently come into our country. I haven't gotten to the part here yet. Okay. But she didn't do this. She didn't get up in here with this NAACP to help Consuelo. I'm about to play on your name, baby. To help Consuelo and them. That's not what she did. You understand what I mean? And these organizations are not respecting. Now I want to read this about the Honey Pot. The Honey Pot Company, a new Voices Fund portfolio company, has entered partnership with CODI, the leading Better For You feminine care brand, struck the major partnership deal with Compass Diversified to help the company's products get in the hands of more consumers. Today, we're celebrating Beatrice Dixon of the Honey Pot Company for her stellar power move with CODI. It's moments like these that fuel our fire, showing the world the unstoppable force of Black women and WOC entrepreneurs. I don't even know what WOC means. Oh, women of color. We may not have inked this deal, but we are basking in the glow of the same, because when one of us wins, it's a victory for all of us. Let's congratulate. That's not true. It's not a victory for all of us. And when one of us Black American women wins, it's a victory for all of them, because they get to get this product. They get to jack the prices. They get to control the distribution. They or minimize the distribution, and they get to take away from us. They either add elements, especially like for hair care, add elements that are now not beneficial for our hair, but they work for their hair. But it's still the same name and the same face. Stop playing in our face. All right, Yusuf Colburn, you're on the Twitter space. Let's hear what you're talking about, and then Nikki, we're going to hear from you directly after Yusuf. Go ahead, Yusuf. You got it.
Thank you. I've been listening to the conversations, so it's been pretty good.
Sure, great, excellent.
And so one of the I guess one of my first points is actually I'm going to talk about the whole honey pot first. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I have a lot of I've been listening. A lot of folks have an issue with merging acquisition, which is that's what it's called when someone sells their company, and it's just how business is done. And, there are, I think, just based off of her sale, I don't know how many other people, her employees that had stakes and things like that. It gives the people opportunity for us to be in the driver's seat as being, investors. So the owner has the opportunity to, fund money or, put in money into other companies. Oftentimes, anytime, these companies are bought, oftentimes the CEO stays for, a year or two, and then they, can do whatever they would like to. And it allows her to have the ability not only to secure her family, financial future, but again, being able to, hopefully she's willing to invest into up and coming businesses like that. There are many cases where, mergers and acquisitions, they just shut down the company. There are so many people that actually just hire or pay for other people's business just to leave them, be dormant, just to remove a competitor. So I look at it as a opportunity. I remember, Barstool, Dave Porter, he sold his company for over $500 million, and then he just bought it back for a dollar. So, just because a person sells a company does not mean that company is going to, inevitably be successful to the now part owner. And again, it allows for her to step into a new role as an investor. But I think the overall thing that I'm thinking is we need to have the issue is that we don't have companies or the investment firms that will actually be able to purchase or provide her some financial relief. So it should not be. We should not chastise her for selling her company. It's just we have not done the job as a community to build up an investment a VC company to actually provide some liquidity for her.
Sure.
And one of my last points is this whole one of the biggest things oftentimes I disagree with a lot of people on these type of stages are the importance of our legacy institutions. When we're thinking about the NAACP, they have over 300,000 members, paid members, and oftentimes I think I heard someone talking about we have power in numbers. Power is numbers unless it's organized. And it's a lot of grassroots people. It's important for us to I'm just going to use the word infiltrate these organizations because they have the infrastructure that we need as a community. They have the number of different chapters. They have, especially the legacy organizations. When you're talking about, some of these, Chamber of Commerce and things like that, they're very fragmented because everybody wants to, just in the DC area, we have 4 or 5. Because everybody wants to be a leader and no one wants to necessarily be a follower. So we are, disjoining our resources based off of, having the sheer number. When I look at, let's say the Hispanic or Latino economic development, there's only one. There's only one in the DMV area. So that's what I look at as all of these legacy organizations, they are a source of power if we're able to access that, and it's up to our responsibility to not, we have people, running for, whether it be president or these other positions. We actually need to start running for president of our organization to take more control of those. If we are saying that the majority of people do not agree with these organizations, then we need to, regain power and direct the funding that these organizations get, periodically. There's these large foundations that just, pretty much just give the money at will to our legacy organization. So I think we definitely should not do away with them. We need to kind of reimagine what they look like because they are the institutions that we say that we want. And I look at them as a part of the solutions to many of our issues.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Oh man, you always bring it, Yusuf. Dr. Nikki, you had hit me on the back. You said there was something else you wanted to contribute to the conversation. By all means, what's tea?
So, a couple of things. Again, it's always a pleasure to be up on your panel and to share space, where good things are happening. That's always a refreshing change to what we generally see on YouTube and other social media platforms. I wanted to say a couple of things. So, one, we have to be mindful that gender and race is omnipresent. And what I mean by that is that I came up to add to the conversation and, as opposed to being welcomed and appreciated for my input because I disagree, and then the gentleman turns around and reiterates my talking points without acknowledging that these are things that I just said. I feel somewhat offended. And again, this is not by you, Mel, at all. So please, I don't want to take offense to that at all. So I understand that oftentimes it's not necessarily the message, that it may be the messenger. So I accept that. I also wanted to concede to the fact, not concede, but reiterate the fact that my other female counterpart here on the panel speaks just as passionately as I do, but that offensive term wasn't thrown out when she, inserts her opinions. And then this idea about stuff presented based on fact, as opposed to me submitting, what's the words I normally use? Conjecture and supposition. When I come to panels in the position I am in, with the credentials I have and the responsibility that I feel to educating Black people in every form that I'm in, I have to be mindful of the fact that, one, I'm not teaching a book. I am sharing information and wisdom that come from several books and the Black experience. And that when I am talking to people, that you should be mindful of the audience and presenting stuff in ways that people can understand and walk away with, what can I do? And the so what and who cares? Okay, so what and who cares? And seeing myself in this. And the gentleman on the panel has mentioned Claude Anderson's book quite a bit, and I'm arguing that it's kind of like a moot point, because we do know that a lot of people don't read. So if we're coming to this panel with the understanding that everybody in the audience has read Claude Anderson's book, and we understand, and the fact that you're being sensitive to my critique of the shortcomings of his text, which is what academicians do. We find the gap, and then we try to add to it and try to make sense out of what's being said, then say that. But again, I want people to understand whatever their role is in a situation, and to be better stewards of their own activism and feel compelled to act, not feel like I am forcing you to feel bad about why you have not acted. Because some of us don't act because we don't know what to do, because the instructions are either absent, or you have experts who come up and it's still unclear. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to drop down. I'm going to hop back down into the chat. And as always, Mel, you are very open to having me come up and, speak and add my 2 cents. And I'm just going to keep it at that. Those are just my 2 cents. Those are my keen observations, because I don't complain. I get in and do the work. I don't complain. I offer keen observations. And again, thank you for having me.
Well, Dr. Nikki, and you're always welcome. That's why I didn't say, hey, Dr. Nikki, if you want me to drop the link, I'll just put it down and hope that you would come up. You are always welcome. You're one of my favorite people, because you, girl, listen. So, and I just want to say, if at any type of way you felt offended by whomever, let me apologize, because I certainly did not want that. You're always bringing the fire. And so I certainly appreciate you, everything you said.
Yeah, but not just the fire. I've done the work, and I'm doing the work. And again, I have a problem when I'm on the panels of any kind, talking with people, and they're preaching a book. The knowledge and my Black activism and my Black experience cannot be captured by a book and one person who, if that book was all of that, then we would have moved forward.
Okay. May I respond to that?
No, I don't want to hear a response to that. I've already heard what it is that you think. So when I hop down, you may respond all you like. But no, I am closed off to your responses, because I wasn't afforded an opportunity to respond to your rebuttal and harsh critique of what I had to say.
I wasn't asking.
So I would like to, again, thank you so very much, Consuelo. Again, I wish you well, sister, in the work that you are doing. The passion that we as Black women have in our speaking about our love for other Black people and the work that we do and the burdens that we bear. Please don't ever let any other man or gentleman make you feel that your tone is assumed, is read as aggression, as opposed to being assertive and confident, and that we do not lack low self-efficacy. We are not apathetic people and all of these other things. So I applaud the work that you do, and I will be praying for you and your efforts. And I'm glad and happy to be in the presence of women who do the work that you do. I'm
Thank
going to
you,
drop
Dr.
down. Thank you.
Nikki. And I hope maybe we can connect in some ways, because I totally understand where you're coming from. People do not know.
Absolutely. But as I said, just as Black women, I am always sensitive to the fact that race and gender are always present, and that, that male ego is absolutely one to be reckoned with, but I'm not afraid to challenge.
Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Thank you so much. George, you wanted to, even though Dr. Nikki has stepped off the panel, there was something you wanted to state, and you're definitely more than welcome to state make your comments, sir.
Well, clearly I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's that's unrealistic.
That's observant
to expect that. So again, I'm not sure where she gets off the perception that I have an issue with her perspective or her tone. And when she said I didn't acknowledge what she said, I acknowledged her when I was speaking. Maybe because you weren't listening as I was speaking, you missed it. But I did acknowledge you for bringing up your observation, which I agreed with, that racism looks different in different systems. And I said that before I got started on the discussion of racial disparities. So when you go back and listen to the recording, you'll hear that I acknowledged you and said, to your assertion on the racism looking different, I acknowledged you on that and then spoke on that. However, you're free not to like me. Understood. If you have an issue with me, you're free to that, because I know the work that I do is challenging, and the only thing that keeps me going is because this is not my personal opinion. This work is not based on my personal opinion. It's based on objective fact. And what happens sometimes is, and this is coming from a clinical therapeutic perspective, is sometimes objective facts can really trigger emotional narratives and beliefs. And that's just part of the work. And I've got thick skin, and people will be pissed off. And I tell you, also my experience has been that some of those very same people I pissed off came back later and said, after some time, I really thought about what you said. Because some of these things, it takes a minute. We're talking about generations of conditioning about this ideology called race. And that's my only objective, is to inform people of the objective facts about what race is. And a lot of the dissonance, Melanie, that you've been experiencing with me, and the frustration that you have been experiencing with me, is because most everyone right now on this panel is listening and hearing what I'm saying through a racial lens. And so you're trying to find a solution within a racial framework. And what I'm saying, what my work is saying, and it's statistically supported, is that racial thinking always and only gets racial outcomes. So it doesn't matter if it's affirmative action, any type of racial equity initiative, they all fall to the wayside for the same problem. They end up inequity, unequal, and disproportionate, because it's framed in black and white. And my work is challenging people who are able to objectively listen to say, consider for a moment of thinking of a solution outside of the racial paradigm. Just consider it. Just consider. I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. I'm just saying, just consider, what if we framed our solution outside of the racial paradigm? We would get different results.
Right. And, listen, I shout out to Dr. Nikki, because I think, and I hear what you're saying, George, and I think that, and like I said, the majority of the people on these YouTube streets, Twitter, I think that maybe in trying to have this type of conversation with you in particular is what has made it somewhat of a challenge, because I don't think every person is looking at it just only from a racial lens. I think we're looking at it, a good handful of us are looking at it. I mean, even Friedman was able to interpret for you. So that indicates, that some people are looking at it correctly, but we're also looking for more out of the conversation. We're trying to get more out of you. And so, and that's okay if there's that disconnect there. That's the whole purpose of trying to continue having and digging and trying to turn it over so we can all get on the same page based on the nature of this particular topic. So, but we don't have to belabor that point. I respect that Dr. Nikki spoke her mind and said exactly what her thoughts were and how she felt, the interaction occurred. I'd rather have her or any person, put it out there and say, "Hey, look, boom! This is how I'm going to describe my interaction while here on your panel." I'd rather have that while we're live in order to be able to address it, as opposed to never, learn about that. And you know what? I do the same damn thing, so I can respect that. Okay, game recognized game. But that's okay. Again, and to me, this is why this conversation is worth having in bits and pieces. And I said last week, George, you and I had a conversation, kind of brought up the reparations. And I said last week, y'all catch the replay. I said the conversation you and I had about it, I said your comments and your position was inflammatory.
Yeah.
So inflammatory that I'm not even gonna bring that up. You're gonna have to come back another time, so we can really set it all on fire. Y'all don't have to be here, okay? Because it's inflammatory. But I do want to say this, Consuelo, I'm glad that you were here, because I with the work you're doing and where you're doing the work and with whom you're doing the work, and then this particular paradigm, about race. This is something this is what we've got to turn up and really start putting this in the atmosphere, because even though George is the only one in the hot seat because of that paradigm, there are others out here in society that align specifically with George. And we have got to find where, what's the vocabulary, what's the language, and how do we present our perspective, whether it's in alignment with or not in alignment with, or where we're able to rip these things off, or who's the interpreter, etc. So this is a conversation that really needs to continue to happen so that we can take advantage of this paradigm and operate appropriately. So
I just want to say that I don't feel like I'm in the hot seat. I'm very cool in my position.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's any heat, the heat is in those who are listening, trying to deal mentally with the challenging paradigm that I'm presenting. And so that's part of the process.
Right.
And people are going to get mad. Some people will see it. Some people will see it now. Some people see it later. This is part of my work. So I enjoy this. Bring
Absolutely.
all the heat you think you can bring, because this is
we
what
know you're built for it. No, I know you're built for it, and I'm calling it the hot seat because you're the one bringing this perspective. That's the only reason why I call it the hot seat. If Mark were on this panel, I'd be in the hot seat, because Mark jumped into a space one time and started talking. I was like, wait, hold up, Mark. And Mark's like, no, wait a minute. So, so I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I just mean it in, you're the one with that perspective, and you're the one that's, sharing that with us and attempting to enlighten us from your perspective on this particular topic. And so, so I'm calling it that, but I get it. You're built for this, George. If you weren't, I wouldn't have had you come up here, because I'm not, you good.
Mel,
Yes.
you should get Mark on the show with George, and how Mark was in a room the other day, right? Expressing, hey, don't say white supremacy. Don't give it power. And it was a discussion.
Well, yeah.
They still want to give the other side so much power, but we have to understand we have the power. We hold the power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, that's what I said. Reach out to Mark, because I've already hit Mark up.
Okay.
So reach out to him, and maybe hopefully next week we could get him on with you again and George, and break this thing down, because it's really important now based on what's really going on in Chicago, really going on in New York. And we get to put this out here in this atmosphere and see, can we blend it together, get people on the same page? If that means, like George, you were saying, you got to be educated. Okay, if that means people are going to pursue those avenues in which to become more acquainted with or more familiar with, we already got Tatiana Harris already said, hey, would like to read more about those objective facts. Where can we find those? And this is the whole point of having the conversation. We may read the facts and decide, I don't give a damn what George talking about. He need to go on somewhere. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. They may pull up here and be like, I don't care what Consuelo talking about. Shoot. And that's okay too. But as long as we're having the conversation, as long as we're bringing this awareness to the forefront so we can take advantage of, if that's a benefit to Black Americans, then we need everything we can.
One of the documents that I would encourage everyone to read in answer to Tatiana is a document by an African-American female anthropologist by the name of Dr. Audrey Smedley. And the title of her research is Understanding Race. It is a very objective, historically factual research document that is foundational for anyone wanting to have a serious, factual, and productive discussion on race. A lot of the things that I've been saying are factually based in a lot of her work. So I strongly encourage you to start just with that one document, Dr. Audrey Smedley, Understanding Race, and read it all the way through from beginning to end.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, I got JV on the mic. He's got his hand up. I want to get this last comment from you, JV, and then we'll shut everything down. I do just want to thank everybody. You guys be sure to like, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Okay. Hit the like button. Let's get this in the algorithm. Come on. JV, unmute your mic. You got it.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation. I just wanted to speak to what I put in the Jumbotron about the extraction of wealth at the tunes of over $70 trillion since 1865 and continuing course today. It's a very good read, Black Tax by Sean Rochester. I think it just exposes kind of what Dr. Nikki was alluding to. There's some gaslighting happening here. The idea that our community didn't do something, and the reason why the honeypot thing happened, the idea that we have to now send our energy around consolidating Chamber of Commerce when we literally have continuing costs. We have mass incarceration. I just don't think these conversations are fully engaged. I think there is a lot of conjecture. I don't see empirical information. I hear sources to the gentleman. I forget the book he wrote, but I keep hearing that source, but I'm not hearing specific empirical information. It's just you guys don't understand race. But like everything to the contrary is that we do understand our condition. And I would like to read that work. I mean, but can you piecemeal it? Can you like bring something up? There's a lot of I think there's gaslighting and manipulation going on here. It is coming off condescending and dismissive. So that's
I got to speak to that. And
go ahead, George. Yeah, absolutely.
I speak to that because y'all gonna throw it at me. You're gonna get it back. Okay.
All right. Go ahead. You got it.
If y'all want to make it like that, that's the best. If that's the best way to have the communication, I'm certainly not afraid of that. Although I don't find it productive. Number one, I'm not gaslighting you. Everyone here is educated enough to go and find any type of objective facts that disprove anything I'm saying. You won't find it. Race is what's gaslighting everybody, and that's what is ironic in this conversation, because we commit to the Europeans' belief system as if that's normal, and then we attack the person who says, "Hey, that's not normal." So you can call me a gaslighter if you want to, but your issue isn't with me. Your issue is with the facts. The fact is race is the ultimate gaslighting. The terms white and black people are gaslighting terms. They were written legally to create a certain level of hierarchy for the purpose of economic exploitation. And if you don't understand that basic fact, And you want to call me a gaslighter, then guilty as charged, because I'm going to keep saying that on every show, on every discussion, on every presentation, that as long as you believe in the concept of black and white people, in the words of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, if you don't understand white supremacy and how it works, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. So get angry at me, call me, gender basher, call me gaslighter. You know what? I understand where it's coming from, because your own beliefs are being challenged.
No, it's sir. It's not anger. It's not anger. It's just misinformation is dangerous, sir. And I'm not.
Prove it.
Let me respond, sir. You said you can have it, so have it.
It's not misinformation.
You can have it, so have it. Sir,
well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, JV.
Let him finish, Cruz. Let him finish, Cruz.
Go ahead, JV. Go ahead, JV. You got it.
Yeah, I'm not angry with you, sir. I'm just challenging the information you're putting out. It is conjecture, and I actually agree with you. And I said race is not scientific. It is a social construct, and to that extent, there is dangers there. But your solution is whole cooperative economic thing. This idea that people don't understand race is a problem. Like, you can't qualify that. That is your conjecture. So you're building a case behind that. Are we arguing? What's happening here?
I just want to get clarity here. Did you or did you not call me a gaslighter? I just want to make sure.
I said that was a gaslight. Your conjecture is gaslighting. I don't know you, sir. I think you're a father. I think you're a brilliant man. You're many things. But what you're saying is a gaslight, sir.
Well, it's not.
I'll tell you what. The honesty is, oh man, I love the honesty. Thank you, JV, for not hiding or withholding your viewpoint. Thank you for that. And George, thank you for being able to take it, because
I'm down.
I know you're built for it. That's what I said. It is the hot seat, because it's coming. Consuelo ain't getting none of that, and I'm not getting none of that.
Because what I want people to do who are watching this is to go and do their own research and see which one is really incorrect.
It's all good. It's all good.
Everything I'm saying is factually based.
Yes, Consuelo.
I'm pretty sure at some point in time I'm going to be in the hot seat, because I have some things that people could bring forward later on that people might not like as well. It'll be hard to hear the truth. We all kind of get in the hot seat when we have to dispel the truth sometimes.
Exactly. And this is not a topic that everybody's just going to, kumbaya, goombaya, or whatever, or goomba, goomba. It just ain't going down like that. And it's okay. And the best part about it is the individuals who are built to take it and built to give it. Okay. That's why we're all going to come out ahead of the game and more successful than we were when we came into it. And George, you quoted something. You said something that Brother Muko, who is in the Twitter space, always says. If you don't understand white supremacy, everything else is going to be confusing. So listen, if we could all get it overnight, this country would be different. Okay? If we could all buy into the correct perspective and understand and all be on the same page, our world would be different. All right. And so that, to me, again, that's the purpose of having this conversation, because we've been operating under one construct for centuries. And so now this more popular paradigm is being espoused, and people have probably in the recesses of their mind have been thinking the exact same thing. Well, what is, so now let's educate ourselves. Let's learn. Let's find out. So,
and there's one thing that the brother said, a different brother, and I can't remember his name, but he said something very important regarding legacy organizations, because this kind of gets back to what my man said about gaslighting as it refers to the Chamber of Commerce. Listen, these are organizations, NAACP, Chamber of Commerce, any organization that is quote unquote out to try to deal with the black solution. The brother was very correct in saying that these are organizations that we should get involved with and start to redirect.
Yusuf said
because
that.
I'm a part of my Black Chamber of Commerce. No, they're not perfect. They have a lot of problems. Those problems that you see, when you see a problem with an organization, what that actually is a calling for your participation to address it. It's not enough to just say, hey, they got problems and I ain't gonna mess with them because look at them. No, that's not responsible. What's responsible is to say, I see a problem and it's on me to go and be a part of that organization and address it. It's not easy work, but it needs to happen.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I know we're ending, but I want to just push back on that. What if we just start our own and we don't even have to put energy into fighting inside these other organizations to even get them to comply or align with what we already believe and think and things of that nature? Because that attempt to go in and retake over the NAACP has already happened with some of us in the grassroots. And just the fact that they are aware of what, that we have a different perspective, that we're not going to align with their mission and goals in certain ways, there's been pushback. So I think at this point in time, we know that as a collective that we don't even want to be involved with certain things and certain perspectives and philosophies or theories. Let's do our own.
So
We are capable of doing that.
I can appreciate that, but the brother, and I wish I could remember his name,
Yusuf.
He alluded to that as well. That is the fractioning in our community, and so as he said in his area, there's a lot of fractions of that, and that is less effective. So I would just first say, look, in your respective areas, in your locations, first give the already established institution a shot. If you feel so strongly after a while that, hey, I've got to do my own thing, then understand when you do your own thing, make sure that you're creating the total concept of what the thing is. Because I see that here where I live is people are doing fractions of the chamber and not the whole concept of the chamber. And so if you're just doing fractions of it, then it weakens everybody else. It's more productive, or the preferred solution is first to go and work with the already established organization and find effective ways to challenge the way business is being done. That's what I'm doing, and I'm having a lot of impact doing it that way. We have to deal with the fractions within ourselves, and that's one of the reasons this discussion shows those fractions, because you can see how people are, it's a process, because we're dealing with conditioning, and we've been conditioned to think a certain way. And when people don't talk the way you think they need to talk, what we do as a community is we tend to attack each other or dismiss each other or disrespect each other. And my interpreter said very, very appropriately earlier is, hey, look, everybody's got something to bring to the table. Everybody. So we need to start looking at each other from that way, rather than being so quick to name call and get emotional. This calls for objective reasoning and critical thinking.
All right, George.
And I think a lot of those organizations are a part of the conditioning. They're a part of implementing the conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, these organizations, they are problematic, and I think. Yusuf did, and George, you highlighted it. Yusuf did say, like in DC, there's got 5 different offices and outlets and et cetera, this and that. But yet among our community, yet within the Hispanic community, there's only one. Because again, they're doing that vertical integration, and they're doing what needs to be done. We're still trying to figure it out. So for that, I would say, yeah, we do need to offer each other grace within reason. But you know what? Sometimes grace is calling you on your shit. Sometimes I got to be gracious enough to say, hey, you know what?
Make sure you're calling the right shit, because
that's cool. I mean, listen,
because a lot of folks major in the minors. You major in the minors. You're majoring on petty shit. If you're gonna call on some shit that's really gonna make a difference. Don't waste time with this petty bullshit that's disrespectful and starts back and forth. We don't need back and forth stuff. We need to say, hey, you know what? I hear what you're saying. Have you thought about this? I've got this piece over here. That's the type of environment we're trying to create. This whole competitive, beat people up over ideas and stuff. That's signs of mental trauma disorder, because everybody's on fight mode all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. And I thank you for saying that. You just jumped right in. It was call us on the real shit.
Get off the petty shit. Get off the petty shit.
Okay. So long as we're calling out the shit, that's a good start. The fact that we're doing it is a good start. And let's keep it going. And let's improve from it, advance from it, learn from it. Consuelo, I'm glad me and you went on that hot seat today, girl. I don't know how I could have took it. Okay. I'm glad this is your first time on the program. So I'm glad they didn't get you. But
I appreciate you inviting me. This has been
No.
very enjoyable, and I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
I
all
appreciate.
about elevation.
Yes, and I appreciate your contribution. And I also, and even though Dr. Nikki's still in the chat, I also appreciate her contribution because, and from my own personal view, just my own personal view, Dr. Nikki her perspective. I rarely disagree with her. I rarely disagree with her. And when I see any comments that she may have made about something, I'm like, and I'm not in the conversation, but I see her comment, I'm like, yep. So that's just where I am. I feel like that's where my connection is. But like I said, I'm glad the conversation happened. Yusuf, you had your hand up. I'm going to let you close us out. Because we seem to have centered around the main comment that you made. Avery said, or George said, what'd you say, George? Don't.
Yeah, I was just giving Yusuf his props on his assertion of don't overlook the existing institutions that are set or designed to address our issues.
Right. So Yusuf, if you want to come up off your mic and you had your hand up, I don't know if you're still available, but yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. The reason why I really think these legacy organizations, we've done a lot of complaining, but we have not done enough. Like, I'm just on the NAACP, website, and the great thing about organizations, especially like nonprofit, is all the information is, public. So I can see all of the 5, people that I would need to hold accountable. I can see the 60 plus national board of directors. All of the, if I have an agenda that I believe differences from what they are doing, specifically when we're talking about the thing that happened during MLK, weekend with, brothers and sisters getting kicked out. This is something, if you actually go to, we knew that this was going, or we knew people were going to plan as far as around reparations. This is something that you go to the actual, the local chapter and say, hey, this is one of the aspects that we're going to do. Do you have a problem with that? Mm-hmm. And then have that dialogue, as well as if you want to build a coalition specifically around the board. See, we have not only the first, last names, they're where they're located. These are professionals. They're easy to reach out to. Figure out how many members that have actually power actually align with you. So I look at it as it does not make sense to reinvent the wheel. These organizations are legacy organizations for a reason, because they stand the test of time. And it's, even if you're going to start your own new organization, the majority of people, the reason why I can just say NAACP or, we all know about these organizations. They have the cachet that is necessary, for our community. It's just more so, for us to organize and figure out, again, redesign, and make sure that they are focusing on efforts that the community and the grassroots, believe so. If we aren't engaging with them, then they're going to do what they feel, is proper. So, yeah, I definitely, again, that goes for all of the different organizations. I think it is, especially when you're smaller, as a community, we want to insulate our power, and then be able to direct it, very pointed. So I definitely think, we should do that for every single organization, out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you so much. Listen, let me thank everybody that pulled up, jumped on the microphone, made a significant contribution to the advancement of this discussion. I just want to thank everybody for your effort. Shout out to everybody in YouTube, Twitter. It looks like I got one more person. I don't know where y'all are, George and Consuelo. I don't want to let this.
I'm good. I can do this all day.
All right, let me see what Art looks like. We got Art trying to come up. Let's see what Art's talking about. Then we're going to wrap our show. We've been here almost a little bit over 2 hours. Hate for those long lives, but Art he's always got something good to say too. So Art, what's T? Unmute your mic. Welcome to the Only Male Cruz Show, the We On Your Head podcast. What's T, Art?
Addressing the title, race is a social construct. How is that a benefit to Black Americans? Um, I guess, are you saying the fact that it is a social construct, or are you saying race itself how is it a benefit to Black Americans? I guess that's my question.
Sure, that's a really good question, and I'm going to put it to you like this because, like you said, you just got here. But here's the thing: there is a paradigm, a perspective, and the actuality that race is actually a social construct, and so it's. I want to say it's gaining traction, although these George will probably get in here and say, no, now hold on, Mel. Now it's so. Now let's get your education first. So let me try to keep before he puts me in the hot seat. So here's what it is.
Before I call you on your shit.
See what I'm saying? On the real shit. So here's the thing. Race is a social construct. And so there are some people who are fully invested in that perspective. And so from that perspective, I'm asking, how does that benefit Black Americans? Because if we're no longer operating under the construct of, black and white and red and brown, then of all the fights, of all the centuries of operating under Negro, black, white, yellow, all of that, where does that put us in our fight for everything we've been fighting for, like equality and everything, our reparations even. So, but my recommendation at this point to you, Art, would be to definitely catch the replay so that you can get the whole gist of the conversation. We were also here last week discussing it, and George is going to be back again. Well, he loves the heat apparently.
That's what I do.
Because he agreed to come back. So come just be sure to come back. Oh shoot. I don't know, George. We got the fire chief in the house now. We got Brother Muko.
Let me give a quick just mental health answer to that question. How is that a benefit to Black America?
Mm-hmm.
The reason that it's important to know the facts about race, there's several reasons. It's important to understand fact over fiction and to be able to tell the difference. Race is fiction. Knowing that keeps you from being vulnerable to racial manipulation, because race is used in many of our, especially the system of politics, it's used to manipulate and highly emotionalize people into actions that are benefit to those respective organizations. And you need to be aware that there is a racial strategy against you. Understanding this, you are free now to determine your own identity. Once you know the information, you can say, you know what? I think I'm gonna stay black. I like being black. I think I'm gonna stay white. I like being white. Oh, you know what? White and black's not really working for me. I think I'm not gonna go with the Europeans' assessment of me. I'm gonna find my own identity. You got your choice now, because most people don't even realize they have a choice. Another mental health benefit. As an African born in America, you no longer are on that belief, that debilitating belief that you need white people to fix your solution. Because many of us are under that very dysfunctional belief that when white people change, our situation will get better. Not going to happen. And one other last thing, which this conversation was getting towards, we can become more free now to create our own systems that are more healthy and more focused and economically productive for our own community, irrespective of what other groups are doing. So that's just a handful of mental health benefits.
Yeah, it's
understanding the fact that race is an ideology. It's a social construct of white supremacy that we need to understand.
All right. So what I want to do, let me hear from Brother Muko. You had your hand up. What's up, Brother Muko?
Thanks, Mel.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me clear.
Yes, sir.
I would just, everybody definitely has strong VGQs. Definitely interesting. Definitely makes logical sense. But I just want to add, race classification is only in place to practice racism, white supremacy. I'm going to repeat that. Race classification, the only reason it's in place is for the practice of racism, white supremacy.
Amen.
That's either whether it's done directly by a white person or a collaborator,
right,
which is a non-white person
right,
trying to practice racism, white supremacy. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody for their BBQs. Definitely powerful, constructive information, and thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, again, and thank you, Brother Muko, because again, even for some, that was one hell of a statement. Now they're going to scratch their head and be like, no, wait a minute. Wait, what? So again, just further substantiating the reason for having this conversation and with this on this particular topic. Art, okay, you're going to close us out, and then we wrapping up. I'm about to go get me some more coffee in my Only Male Cruz show, the podcast cup. So what's up, Art? Unmute your mic. What's tea?
Yeah. I think any construct that divides 8 billion people into 5 groups is archaic, for lack of a better word.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and it's ethnocidal by nature. But I also notice a lot of people trying to say that Black Americans are from Africa. In no sense of the word are they. After you get past the 6th generation, you don't even share DNA. It's a lottery ticket if you even share DNA with that ancestor. So I know all of us here have been here for more than 6 to 7 generations on average. So that would make us not relation even genetically. And then when you go to the fact that our ethnogenesis literally happened in America, and that's if you don't believe that we were already here, some of us. So I just reject that African status. Elon Musk is more African than the average Black American, in my opinion. So I don't know why we would put ourselves out of the continent. And I also will say this: where did the first African come from? Because last I checked, the oldest mummies in Nevada, the oldest waters in Canada, the oldest mountains is in the South. What did they got the oldest of in Africa again? I don't remember. The oldest Homo sapien is in Israel. The oldest upright hominids, first 2 are in Europe. I still haven't said Africa yet. So I don't know where people are getting that, because those Africans had to migrate from somewhere, right? So I would have to say we got the oldest fossil tree. We got the oldest living tree in America. The oldest fossil trees in New York, the oldest living trees in California. So are you sure they didn't migrate from America? Like, could you, like, without a shadow of a doubt, say that?
Well, I'll tell you what, Art.
Just food for thought.
No, and good food, and we're gonna eat that tomorrow. Okay, we're gonna put that on next week's menu, because again, Art, and like I said, every time you come up on the microphone, you share. I mean, there's some intelligent people on Twitter. I'm telling you.
And one thing to that is doing the work of addressing the social construct is not in any way saying what you should identify as. Again, because the question that he raises is an excellent question. And I would love to have more discussion, more fruitful discussion on that, because that's going to be more factual based than this thing about this fake European economically exploitative idea of race. Let's first make sure we're clear that race, as the brother said, is an ethnocidal ideology. Let's just clear that up first. Then we can address that other stuff. But I really appreciate how he framed that.
Absolutely. Art, something else. Okay. So now we got, and you're our last guy, Sevis Boopsy 97. You got the mic, sir.
Thank you very much. And yes, thank you for having the space. And I don't want to be too long. I think of race in these terms. You don't have burglary without burglars. You don't have arson without arsonists. You know, we call them firebugs sometimes.
Okay.
You don't have rape without rapists. And the phonetic word sounding equivalent of race without racism.
Right.
And one way to look at it is that it is a mistreatment of people based upon color. So I suggest, or is it possible to not have race if that's its purpose, to replace white supremacy, racism, with a system of justice, guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that those who need help the most get the most constructive help.
Right.
And again, I thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Absolutely.
And I hope my words have been offered some clarity.
Yes.
That
but
was awesome.
yeah, I don't got no regard for race at all as far as that goes. It's only continually mistreatment, especially for Black people.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I appreciate you for allowing me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
By what that brother said, this is what most people really don't realize. Whatever you are a practitioner of, that's what you are. So as he said, if you are a practitioner of rape, that makes you a rapist. If you're a practitioner of biology, that makes you a biologist. If you're a practitioner of race, that makes you a racist. And as the couple of brothers have said, race is only really about white supremacy. So it doesn't matter what your skin color is. If you believe and practice the idea of identity by skin color, you're perpetuating white supremacy. And I know that's going to blow some people's minds when I say that, because that's not what our conscious intention to do is. But that's what we're doing. When you affirm someone's whiteness, you're affirming them subconsciously in their supremacy.
Okay, now you know what, and with this we're going to wrap. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. When you come back again next week, George and Consuelo, I hope you'll be here too. This is where now I want us to walk in this minutia and say, oh, okay, now when you do this, you're affirming it. Don't do that. That's affirming. When you do that, you're just affirming yourself, but you're reaffirming that. This is what I'm trying to get at. And that's where, now let me hot seat you a little bit, George.
Come on with it.
Okay, let me hit this bullshit. So
is it petty shit or big shit?
At the beginning of the conversation, I was hoping you were going to say, okay, so like this and that. I was wanting you to break it down for us that way, but it's a good thing that we got to this point. So when we're back together next week, that's what I'm looking for, because we, as a group, we're all here. We're like, oh, okay, yeah. But tomorrow, when I go to the south side of Chicago, it's just going to be me. And if I run up on, somebody who identifies as white, and I'm trying to let them know that, there is, race is a construct. I need to know how to, okay, I'm not about to reaffirm your perspective. I'm walking in my perspective. So these are the tools and the perspectives I want us to discuss, so we can begin to equip ourselves while we educate ourselves all at the same damn time. Feel what I'm saying?
I feel you.
All right. So thank you, George, for being built for the hot seat, bro. Because you, yes. Consuelo, thank you for being here. Dr. Nikki, thank you for showing up on the YouTube panel and offering your contribution. Thank you so much. Thank you for always representing, Dr. Nikki. I love you so much. Shout out to the people in the Twitter sphere that popped up. We got counter racism trying to get up on here. We're actually getting ready to wrap it up. And so I'm just going to say it.
Don't be rude to your company. Don't be rude.
Yeah, I'm not, because they, like I said, this crew, they be saying some things. Counter racism. You got the mic. I just don't want to. I don't want these people to leave. So I'm gonna mail you. We out of here, girl. You took too long. Go ahead, counter racism. You got it, baby. What's tea? Hello. You there, counter racism? Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm just sitting back listening to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the mic.
Yeah. Are you black or white? Counter racism.
That boy sound like Barry White on the microphone.
Yeah, he does.
Show you right.
Show you right.
Yeah, I'm a black person.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just kind of playing with you about the racism. What are your thoughts so far on the perspective, or have you any thoughts about the perspectives?
What is the perspective?
Oh, about race being a construct, but a social construct. But I'll tell you what. Please join us next week. Okay.
Yeah, come back.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, join us next week, and definitely catch the replay, because I've heard you speak in some spaces before, and so you're very intellectual, very intelligent, and so I'd love to hear what you have to say about this topic overall, and so maybe we can make that happen next week as well. So, with that being said, y'all, that's it That is the podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. And until next time, y'all, we will see you when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruz Show, the We On Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? From a Black American's perspective. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch us live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Let's go to work.